throw in there.
We ready? We ready? The Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Gun Barrel City, Texas will meet in a regular meeting in City Hall Council Chambers located at 1716 West Main Street, Gun Barrel City, Texas, on Monday, February 12th, 2024 at 6 p.m. I call this meeting to order. It is in fact 6 p.m. Before we begin, I would like to introduce to everyone our newest commissioner, Mike Wilmoth, who is joining us for his first meeting tonight. Mike, you want to give him a little wave, maybe, so they know you?
Wave at all that.
Little wave.
Hi, everyone.
And I would also like to acknowledge, as I always do, the presence of our mayor, Brian Krull, city council members Rita Evans, Cindy Key, Ken Foster, April Burns. We always are happy to see them here. Now, I will begin. Roll call from my left, please.
Burson here.
McCullough here.
Die here.
Weller here.
Key here.
Wilmoth here.
We have a quorum. Citizens' comments are accepted for items on this agenda. No other issue can be addressed, and the presiding officer will withdraw recognition of the speaker. Any person desiring to speak must fill out the comment form prior to the gaveling to order of the meeting. Individual comments are limited to 5 minutes, and minutes are not transferable to another citizen. Any person desiring to speak must come to the podium and be recognized by the presiding officer. City staff will be referred to as staff and not by name, title, or position, and no disparaging remarks will be made. Commissioners will not respond to comments during the public hearing, but may refer to them during their discussion of the issue. Tonight, item 1B is a public hearing for the Pier 334 project, so any comments related to those agenda items should be held for the public hearing. A public hearing allows citizens the opportunity to address the commission on the specific item for which the public hearing is opened. Do we have anyone wanting to comment on an agenda item? In this case, it would be the January minutes not related to Pier 334. Seeing no one, I close citizens' comments. On to the agenda. 1, new business. 1A, consider and take action to approve the January 8th, 2024 Planning and Zoning meeting minutes. May I have a motion, please?
I move that we approve the January 8th, 2024 Planning and Zoning meeting minutes. This is Roy Key, as written and provided in item 1A.
I have a motion for Mr. Key. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. McCullough.
I have a second for Mr. McCullough. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, vote for my left, please.
Burson, yes.
McCullough, yes.
Die yes.
Weller, yes.
Key, yes.
Wilmoth, yes.
Motion carries. Public hearing comments will be limited to 5 minutes. Speakers, please be aware of the timer on the dais. At the end of your allotted 5 minutes, the microphone will be turned off and the next speaker will be called to the podium. I will now read item 1B into the record. I will request the audience please stay quiet during the public hearing comments to ensure the commissioners can hear the comments. Please understand, commissioners cannot respond to any comments made or answer any questions posed. Item 1B, public hearing regarding a request to 1, rezone tract 2B and 1 according to the AB 488 T.S. Mitchell survey, open paren AB 488 T.S. Mitchell Sur TRS 2B and 1 close paren, and the Big Chief addition LT1 open paren RETR3 close paren according to the AB 488 T.S. Mitchell survey, open paren AB 488 T.S. Mitchell Sur Big Chief addition LT1 open paren RETR3 close paren F/9 close paren, in the city of Gun Barrel City, Texas. 2, amend the comprehensive land use plan and map. And 3, approve a preliminary plat for Pier 334 LLC. We will now open the public hearing. I have one request to speak from either Bob or Cherie Durant. Do you wish to speak? You don't wish to speak? Okay. Then I will close the public hearing. The following 3 agenda items are related to the rezoning of the property: approval of the PD zoning and approval of the plat for the property located at the corner of Highway 334 and Big Chief. I will now read all 3 items into the record. Then we will have a presentation from staff and the developer, and then have time for questions and comments from commissioners. It is important to note that a number of exhibits were submitted as part of this rezoning packet. The developer must provide these exhibits when asking for a rezoning to a PD and approval of the preliminary plat. Anytime a rezone is approved, the comprehensive plan must be updated. At the end of this meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission will have made a recommendation to City Council on how to move forward with these items. When these items are considered at their February council meeting. Planning and Zoning is an advisory board to council, and as such, this item will be considered again at that meeting for a final decision moving forward. The city engineer is also on hand to answer any questions commissioners may have. Please keep in mind the city engineer has worked very closely with staff and the developer to ensure that outside of the 4 exceptions we will hear about tonight, this development is in line with all Gun Barrel City codes and the B2 zoning already in place. At the end of the presentation and questions, we will need a motion for each individual item. Item 1C. Consider and take action to make a recommendation to the City Council regarding rezoning Pier 334 LLC, described as Tract B2 and 1 according to the AB 488 T.S. Mitchell Survey, open paren AB 488 T.S. Mitchell Serve TRS 2B and 1, close paren, and the Big Chief Edition LT1, open paren RETR3, close paren, according to the AB 488 T.S. Mitchell Survey, open paren AB 488 T.S. Mitchell Serve, Big Chief Edition LT1, open paren RETR3, close paren, F/9, close paren, in the city of Gun Barrel City, Texas, from General Business District, open paren B-2, close paren, to Planned Development District, open paren PD, close paren. Item 1D, consider and take action to make a recommendation to the City Council regarding amending the comprehensive land use plan and map for Pier 334 LLC. 1E, consider and take action to make a recommendation to the City Council on a request to approve a preliminary plat for Pier 334 LLC, described as Tract 2B and 1 according to the AB 488 T.S. Mitchell Survey, open paren AB 488 T.S. Mitchell Serve TRS 2B and 1, close paren, and the Big Chief Edition LT1, open paren RETR3, close paren, according to the AB 488 T.S. Mitchell Survey, open paren AB 488 T.S. Mitchell Serve, Big Chief Edition LT1, open paren RETR3, close paren, F/9, close paren, in the city of Gun Barrel City, Texas. We now welcome Brooke to the podium to give the staff presentation.
Hello. We initially received an application for this project on August 17th, 2022, and the completed application was received on January 25th, 2024. On January 29th, 2024, notification letters were mailed to property owners in accordance with the requirements, and we sent letters to property owners residing within a 200-foot radius of the subject property, informing them of the proposed zoning change. On January 30th, 2024, public hearing notice was sent to the local newspaper, and then on February 1st, 2024, the public hearing notice was duly published in the local newspaper, ensuring compliance with the requirements of providing at least 15 days' notice prior to the City Council meeting. Today, February 12th, 2024, is the regular scheduled planning and zoning meeting, and it appears on your agenda. And it's going to be placed on the agenda for the February 27th, 2024 regular City Council meeting. This is the 200-foot boundary from the properties in question. This is where I sent letters to the 29 property owners, and there are 51 properties and 29 people own those properties. We received 3 letters back in opposition. I'm now going to present the exhibits laid out in PD 2024-001. The requirements outlined in 156.108A and 156.108G have been examined and are documented within the 2A existing site conditions map. This exhibit contains a map illustrating the existing site conditions of the area under consideration for development. This map can help commissioners determine 156.108A, the general character and compatibility of proposed developments, including factors such as yard depths, ground coverage, tree cover, surface drainage, and density. 156.108G, consideration for recreational and open space. Staff has clarified that there are no specific exemptions mentioned regarding those provisions within this exhibit. Commissioners can refer to Exhibit 2A for detailed information regarding the evaluation of proposed developments in accordance with these criteria. Exhibit 2B, the Site Development Plan, addresses various requirements outlined in both 156.108A, 156.108G, and 156.039 Plan Development. It provides a detailed plan for the proposed development, covering aspects such as yard depth, ground coverage, tree coverage, surface drainage, and density as per 156.108A requirements. It addresses conditions for recreation and open space, outlining the location, size, and development of recreational areas within the development in accordance with 156.108G. This exhibit covers the land area, adjacent sites, zoning classification, rights-of-way, and easements as required by 156.039A. It also provides clear information regarding the location, category of use, entrances, and exits to the structures found in 156.039D. Detailed dimensions and capacities of parking and loading areas are outlined, ensuring compliance with 156.039F. The exhibit addresses the location and screening of various facilities such as garbage containers, air conditioners, and outside storage or display areas as mandated by 156.039K. PD Exhibit 2C focuses on emergency access. Addressing the requirements outlined in 156.039B, 156.108B, and 156.108C. It provides details on adequate access roads, supporting facilities and off-street parking, and loading areas designed for efficient movement for emergency vehicles as mandated by 156.039B. Additionally, it considers ingress and egress, internal circulation, and access for service and emergency vehicles in compliance with 156.108B. The exhibit also addresses building and structure locations, setback requirements, and personal safety considerations, particularly for police and fire protection. PD Exhibit 2D drainage plan fulfills requirements including 156.108D, 156.108E, 156.039B, and 156.039 little b. It outlines strategies for sedimentation, drainage, and flood control while preserving greenery, evaluates utilities suitability, and provides site grade and details, and assesses infrastructure adequacy. The plan comprehensively addresses drainage and environmental concerns for the development. PD Exhibit 2E, street boundaries and right-of-way, meets requirements including 156.108B, 156.108C, and 156.039E, and 156.039B. It ensures efficient vehicular access and optimal building arrangements and adequate infrastructure provision. The exhibit comprehensively addresses street boundaries and right-of-way considerations for the development. And this is just the page 2 of that. PD Exhibit 2F, easements. This meets requirements including 156.108B, 156.108E, and 156.039C. It ensures access, utility availability, and convenient traffic flow within the development. In summary, the exhibit effectively plans for easements in compliance with regulations. PD Exhibit 2G1, Parking, Accessibility, and Loading, provides comprehensive details on parking, accessibility, and loading facilities within the development. The exhibit outlines a design for 241 parking spaces below the initial requirement of 283 spaces in the B2 district. However, in PD Exhibit 2G2, which is going to be the next page, but we'll get there in a minute, parking, accessibility, and loading, this highlights that upon acquiring the Jones property, an additional 30 parking spaces will be secured addressing this. This plan addresses 156.108B by ensuring smooth ingress, egress, and internal circulation within the property, including well-designed off-street parking areas. PD Exhibit 2G1 considers the dimensions and capacities of parking areas, ensuring compliance with regulatory standards. In summary, PD Exhibit 2G1 successfully plans for parking, accessibility, and loading, meeting regulatory requirements while accommodating the development's needs. PD 2G2 incorporates plans for integrating the Jones property into the development, ensuring a seamless continuation of parking provisions. And this is 2G2 that I referenced in the previous slide. Whew, okay. PD Exhibit 2H1, Hotel Dimensional Requirements, meets most requirements, providing for special exemption for setbacks and the roof pitch. While the B2 regulations stipulate setbacks for 40 feet for the front, 15 feet for the side street, and 25 feet for the interior side, the development requires exception for setbacks for 15 feet from the front, 5 feet from the side street, and 15 feet from the interior side. The minimum roof pitch required in the B2 district is 412. However, the hotel design is based on a pitch of 212. 412 meaning the roof rises 4 inches for every 12 horizontal inches. Details are provided for both in the PD Exhibit 2H1 Hotel Dimensions requirements. The plan ensures compatibility with the surrounding areas and minimizes detrimental impact as required by 156.108A. It also considers building arrangement and safety concerns addressing 156.108C. PD Exhibit 2H1 details the location of structures, categories of use, and construction materials satisfying 156.039D. And PD Exhibit 2H1 effectively plans for the hotel's dimensional requirements, meeting requirements while providing exceptions for setbacks and the roof pitch. PD Exhibit 2H2 for the food hall and retail building requirements meet most requirements, making special exemption for setbacks. While the B2 regulations stipulate setbacks of 40 feet for the front, the development requires exceptions for setbacks of 5 feet for the front. The minimum roof pitch required in the B2 district is 412. However, the food hall design is based on a pitch of 212. 412, again, meaning that the roof rises 4 inches for every 12 horizontal inches. Details are provided for both in the PD Exhibit 2H2 food hall and retail building. PD 2H2 effectively plans for the hotel dimensional requirements, meeting requirements while providing exception for setbacks and roof pitch. PD Exhibit 2I, landscape screening, addresses landscaping and screening requirements. It ensures compatibility with surrounding areas in 156.108A. It considers environmental preservation 156.108D. It incorporates screening and buffering for privacy 156.108F. It addresses location and screening of facilities, which is 156.039K. It evaluates nuisance prevention measures 156.039D, and assesses directional lighting 156.039E. PD Exhibit 2J, landscape and tree mitigation. The plan entails the removal of 1,280.5 caliper inches of protected trees, with 403 caliper inches slated for replacement. However, due to spatial constraint and the absence of suitable irrigated locations within the city for replanting, a balance of 877.5 inches remain. Further details are provided in PD Exhibit 2J, landscape and tree mitigation. This plan considers environmental preservation required in 156.108D, and it incorporates screening and landscaping for site privacy 156.108A. I don't know. Today, the Planning and Zoning Commission will review 3 items, beginning with 1C, which involves a request to rezone properties from General Business District, B2, to Planned Development District, PD. This change accompanies the establishment of Planned Development District. Is that coming out of?
She's in the hall talking.
Okay. Sorry. The PD encompasses all exhibits presented today, along with additional information provided in your packet. It's important to note that this PD is specific to the property in question, and all items under consideration must be addressed before obtaining a certificate of occupancy or final plat approval. Furthermore, the final plat must be submitted to the Commission prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. The next item on the Planning and Zoning Commission's agenda for recommendation to the City Council is item 1D. This item entails a significant update to the current land use plan. The current land use plan outlines regional retail, which is focused on major retail, restaurants, and entertainment along highways with buffering from residential areas, and medium-density residential comprising of single-family homes, duplexes, and townhomes with 4 to 6 units per acre. Designed to be accessible yet buffered from major roads. The proposed land use is Lakeview District, a transformative mixed-use entertainment zone featuring retail outlets, offices, and restaurants. The focus is on creating a pedestrian-friendly environment with distinct branding and ample open space. There will be a priority on waterfront access near the Cedar Creek Reservoir. The final item, item 1E, concerns the review of the preliminary plat. Traditionally, the item is familiar to both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council, particularly in the context of new commercial developments. However, as this item is within the planned, because this item is being considered as the planned development, additional details have been provided throughout the site plan process. The preliminary plat essentially serves as a straightforward description of the proposed site, its easements, and its boundaries as mandated in section 156.039C. and I just provided you guys a bigger view of that, just in case there's any conversation about it. And now we're going to have a presentation from Stephen, our developer.
Thank you, Brooke.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. I haven't seen many of you in a long time. And commissioners, thank you for inviting me here for this presentation. I'd like to spend a couple minutes just going through a little bit of the history of all the things that we have done to get here, because it's been a long time, and some of the commissioners I have not met before, and they probably were not sitting in on the EDC meetings where we brief them on a quarterly basis. And then I'd like to address the four exemptions at the very end, and I'll be as brief as I can. So we start off obviously with a public-private partnership contract, which was negotiated, and then it was amended and extended. During that time, we met with Henderson County, and we got the CPACE approvals, which is a commercial property assessed clean energy program for the entire county. Gun Barrel was the first to have it here, and it means that the federal government will come in some cases, and guarantee some loans if you're going to be super energy efficient, which our project will be. The county commissioners unanimously approved that, and CPACE is now part of Henderson County. The Opportunity Zone designation, which is here in Gun Barrel and Henderson County in general, we had to go and get it reviewed and certified, which we did. And then we had to assemble all of the land, which included the Big Chief Landing, the parking lot, or the parking area located to the east of it. Janet, would you put up 2I, which is in the last presentation, which shows kind of everything? In Brooke's presentation. Oh, in Brooke's. Okay. Just so I could. I don't understand what 2I is. That was the exhibit. Go back to your presentation, Janet. Thank you. That's fine. That's fine. Yep. Just so they could see the land that was assembled. We started off with the Big Chief area, then we added the parking area that's on the east side of Crossroads Liquor Store, then the lot that is north of the hotel site, which was the Overton property on Jeffrey Circle, and then the little tiny sliver in that circle on the very top of the page, which is a little piece that we are buying from TxDOT. And then the last is that kind of white block that's empty, that is the Jones property that we are still working with their heirs to try to purchase. As we're moving through all this, we had a town hall meeting, and this was in April of 2022, where we met many residents, and we took lots of notes, and then we took the time to go and meet with as many of those residents as we could in person. And I'm going to come back to that because I've got a list from all of our notes back then and the resolutions that we took to help mitigate some of their issues. We then had a second town hall meeting, which was held this last summer. Many of you attended that, and we discussed, it was the main focus was the EDC loan, but we also addressed other questions about the hotel and the project and concerns, and I have notes on that as well. So starting with in October of 2021, when the project started, we have updated the EDC 10 times in person, once via telephone. We've had many meetings with staff, the city manager, the city engineer, the city attorneys, and the different city committees, P&Z and the city manager. We've also met with elected officials. We've also met with many citizens, and we've never said no to a meeting, and we've never not responded to a question, either in writing, on the phone, or in person. Our development team is pretty unique. When we started out, we were decided to apply for and chase a Hilton license. And to do that, Hilton requires you to use many people off of their approved vendor list because they've built so many hotels. They want people that know exactly what they're doing so they can do it quickly and easily. So we hired Roush Architects out of Dallas. They're on the Hilton approved list. They're number 4 in the state of Texas out of hundreds. And we used 2H Architects as well. And they were hired to design the food hall and the hotel structure, and to do the SD, the structural design drawings, in order to go back to Hilton. Getty Interiors, which is Hilton approved, their number 1 guy in the country, was engaged to work with the interior designs, and we were lucky enough, this city actually and us, were lucky enough to be selected as a Williams-Sonoma test case. So we will be the first hotel in the United States that will be exclusively designed on the inside by Williams-Sonoma. All of the finishing, all of the furniture, all of the colors, everything will be a Williams-Sonoma hotel. And it's quite exciting for us because it will bring an awful lot of people, curious people, to come and see what we've done. And if Hilton likes it and if it does well, they'll be running out a tapestry brand, Williams-Sonoma, all over the country, blueprinted on what we've done here, which will be they call it the small luxury division. We hired Spinelli Restaurant Consulting to design the kitchens for the banquet facilities and for the restaurant. We hired Salcedo Engineers out of Grand Prairie to take care of our civil engineering work, and they've done all of the work with Mr. Mundo. And then we hired the landscape architects, J. Camille Lafoy, out of, I think they're from Prosper, and they were also on the approved list for landscaping around Hilton properties. On the development consultants and partners, we have our local attorney that we use to do the filing with the county, both the drainage easements that we got and the sidewalk easement that we negotiated with the Jones family, and I'll talk about that in a bit. We hired a market assessment market assessment firm called Integra Realty Resources. And we had to do that because we can't build a Hilton hotel without a market assessment to see whether people are going to show up and how many people are going to go and eat. We had a site plan and building design layouts done by Roush and 2H. We hired HVS, which is the largest hotel appraiser and feasibility study company in the United States, and they did our feasibility study. Then they updated our feasibility study, and they did our appraisal. Purpose Lodging, which is, again, a Hilton-approved top 10 management company, has been hired to manage the hotel. They're really good at what they do. They started off as a turnaround specialist, and now they run a couple hundred hotels for Hilton. So they've got general managers and food and beverage people. They just parachute in. They come in, and then they spend 6 months to a year training locals to take over after they're done. We were granted and have paid for a Hilton Tapestry license, and we're part of the Hilton Tapestry collection, and we are the Williams-Sonoma, the first of those. We hired Splash USA, and they're going to be taking care of the design for the Splash Park. We use Hardin Survey, which is a local firm. And then on the development side of kind of where we are now, the construction, so we put together, after everything was done and the SD package was submitted to Hilton and we got approved, and then we worked with Mr. Mundo and we got as close as we could to the final plans. We went ahead and built out for the 3rd time our construction budget, which is now kind of set in stone, and we are out collecting bids from local vendors. We agreed with the EDC when we started this, it would use every local vendor first, and then if we couldn't find someone that was satisfactory, we'd go outside the market. So we are doing that now. The first one that we've engaged that is ready to start working is TD Enterprises, and they'll be doing the seawall, the new seawall, and be taking out the boat ramp and putting in all the concrete around it. As you know, that's in really bad shape. It needs to be done pretty quickly because the erosion is kind of horrendous down there. We negotiated with Lowe's, and thank you for the city staff helping us. We cut a deal with Lowe's here in town, and they will be providing us with every single thing possibly imaginable that they can provide to us, and things that they don't provide kind of as a basic, they're willing to go back and talk to their vendors and try to find for us, whether that's HVAC units, whether it's certain kinds of cement or roofing. They'll do whatever they can to help. And the traffic study was commissioned by DeShazo Group. We actually had to hire them twice. The first one was for the new roads, and the second one was for a traffic study. And when I talk about the exemptions, I'll talk about that a little bit more. And they worked very closely with TxDOT, so it was pretty easy. They knew each other well. Mr. Mundo knew them, so I think they were very effective for us. We then obviously submitted for our plan development, and we also completed our Phase 1 and Phase 2 assessments. We had to get a Phase 2 because a long time ago there used to be gas on that site, gas tanks, so they had to make sure that within a 5-mile radius we hadn't polluted the lake since the tanks were taken out in 1972. Was somewhere around there, so we did that. We did our geotech studies, so we know where the groundwater is, and we know where all of the different pipes and wires and things are. We worked with all the utilities in the area, and we've got approvals from them as to what kind of new sewer lines, electric lines, water lines have to be put in. And we submitted that complete civil engineering package to Mr. Mundo for his approval a couple weeks ago. After many, well, in the June meeting, we talked about, we were on iteration 3, and we probably had to go to iteration 4 or 5. I think we wound up with iteration 7 because it was quite a complicated project. And when you saw those slides going through, there's so much that went into it. It's pretty amazing. So now I'd like to go back, if you don't mind, and just talk about what we did in our first town hall meeting when we proposed this project. There were a bunch of questions. There were a bunch of people. And the largest question that we had was traffic. Would the traffic, what would it do to the neighborhood back there? So the first thing that we had to look at, and which is why DeShazo was hired, was that we had to figure out how many cars were coming off the road, and then how many new cars would be coming in because of this. And because you know the community very well, their report came back and said that we would only increase traffic flow on 334 by 3% at a peak time, which is 784 cars, per hour go by there on the average. So it was a de minimis amount of cars that would pull in to our parking. So it wasn't a street issue. Then it became a neighborhood issue, and we originally had the using Jeffrey Circle as one of the turn-ins to get into the property. So we did away with that, and we moved the entire project into and on the Big Chief piece of property, so that nobody would be using any of the roads, any of the neighborhood roads. All of our traffic would be enclosed within our subdivision, within our planned development. Then we looked at the roads, and we realized that the turn, and this came up in the meeting, the turn to get out of Big Chief onto 334 during busy times is horrendous. And if we added a bunch of cars to that, it would make it even worse. And at our town hall meeting, many of the residents in that area said, that's our biggest problem, fix that, and we'll be happy with y'all. So we sat down with Mr. Mundo and with TxDOT, and we designed a new road, which is about 450 feet east of the existing Big Chief Drive, and we have a turn lane and 3 lanes going out. So it should be very, very easy, at least to get out onto 334. Getting in will not be an issue because of the turn lane, and getting out, you'll have 2 lanes to turn out of, left and right. We also got the report, and we went back again and asked DeShazo for a traffic light report. And while they said it wasn't necessary, it would be beneficial if you did do it. So we all agreed, the city and ED and YNS agreed that we would take that up a little bit further into the development, maybe halfway through or 3/4 of the way through, look at that. The price tag for putting in a traffic light there is $400,000, so it's not inexpensive. And it was not a have to, but it was would be nice to have. So we left it at that. The second thing that people were upset about or wanted to talk about were trees. And they didn't want us to tear down some of the older oak trees. And we tore down, our plan is to take down as few as possible, But then we had other issues on Jeffrey Lane, which was the need to put a 6-foot-tall fence, that sits on top of a berm, which is completely interlaced with hollies and other kinds of plantings, so that none of the lights from the cars would be turned on or could be seen from the houses on the west side of Jeffrey Circle. So we could either leave up all those big oaks but have no coverage in between them, or take them down and put up the screening. So we elected to take down many of them and put up screening, and then plant as many big trees as we could all around the rest of the development from the landscaping plan that was up earlier, including the medians and the parking lots and all around the food hall. We also were notified about a deed restriction for the subdivision where we had purchased the Overton lot. We were going to put a beach there, going to put a big sand beach so that people could access the lake and they could sit on the beach. Well, we were told that we couldn't. The lawyers checked it out. The residents were absolutely correct. So that is now just going to be a building site potentially for the future. We could put a house on it if we wanted to, but I think we're just going to leave it fallow for now and just put a lot of nice landscaping on it as a buffer to the neighborhood. Let's see, the extension, the intersection, and then there was in Mr. Renfro, who lives in the house that will be adjacent to the brand-new road that's coming in. He did not want lights into his house as well. So, and there's only like 4 or 5 feet where they kind of intersect between the new road and maybe his back bedroom. So we agreed to put in a 6 or 8 foot privacy fence on our side of the property to make sure that no light would move outside of our subdivision into his home. So we've taken care of that. There were some trade-offs. By moving everything onto the property and not being able to use Jeffrey Circle or Jeffrey Lane, we had to downsize the amphitheater a little bit, which actually wound up okay because of the parking. We had to eliminate a couple of splash park pads, same kind of issue there, and we had to move the the grand circle we were going to use to turn around to get people in and out of the hotel, and we had to move that a little bit further to the north. And so we lose a little bit more green space, but it is what it is. We also lost the beach. And to make some of that happen, we eliminated the spa from the hotel, which is kind of sad, but we didn't have enough room for it all, so we shrunk the footprint. Some of the people that we met with, in addition to Mr. Renfro, was Mr. Wilmoth and Mr. Burson. Their needs were on this list. We believe that we've done everything we can. There's one picture, Janet, if you could go down, that's the top of, so there, that's the view of the hotel as designed from 334 as you're driving from west to east. And this is a picture, the same picture, but it's a little bit higher up, and you can see how the whole thing lays out. And you can look at the roof pitch from there, which is one of the reasons for these pictures, is you could see that the idea was we have, could you go one further? If you can see to the right and the left, we have sunk the hotel down. That hill is significantly higher than shows there, and we dug it in so that we lose almost a full level into the ground. So our ground floor is truly in the ground. It is not up as high as you think it is, and that allowed us to, compress it down to 3 levels above ground, more or less. And then with the pitched roof a little bit lower, it doesn't look like it's a big, large project. In fact, we think it's only. We were trying to get the measurements prior to this meeting, couldn't get it done. We think we're only about 8 feet higher than the new house that was built on Jeffrey Circle in height when we look side to side. So it's going to be, a well-hidden piece of property. Could you go one more again? That one. Oh boy. Okay, so it's sideways. I apologize. If you look at the top right corner, for just one. If you look at that, the brown on that building, that is actually the, this. I don't know how that happened, actually.
Or click on it and rotate it. You might be able to take a picture and twist it
Oh, it's,
right there.
oh. It's a big file. Yes. It's actually the one below the bottom two. Yeah.
At least it'll be aimed right.
Okay. So as you look at the two bottom pictures, the one on the left is the water-facing side, and all of the hotel rooms are on that side of the building. The picture on the right is the side that faces Jeffrey Circle. And after meeting with Mr. Wilmoth and Mr. Burson, we took every room off that side of the hotel. So there are no hotel rooms on that side of the hotel. There are no windows on that side of the hotel. There are some fake windows that are there for design element, but there is no light that will come out of that side of the hotel. And the lobby will sit down and behind a berm and the fence and the trees. So we did everything we could to address the concerns of the people on that side of the street. We moved all the traffic off. We put in new roads. We designed a hotel that provided them with all the privacy they needed. We thought we've tried to be as good a partner as we possibly can. So now I'd like to talk just about the exemptions that we're asking for. The first one is parking. And I did provide a write-up to staff about the parking spaces. The requirements are very straightforward, easy to understand, except that they were designed for a specific single use. So there's a requirement of 283 spaces for what we are providing. And what we're providing is a hotel with a little breakfast bar, a hotel with a restaurant, and then we're providing a 20,000 square foot food facility that's got a couple of bars, it's got one restaurant, and then one kind of floor that's got retail and food inside it, kind of like a, I'm not even sure what to call it, but booths, 8 or 9 booths that would either be a retail store or there would be a little food court. So when we did this, and again, Hilton is very specific, and so were our investors about what to do and how to do it. They all wanted to make sure that we had enough parking spaces to make this work. And what isn't shown on here is that each individual thing that we build has a parking requirement, but not all of those things are used at the same time. So for instance, the banquet facility at the hotel, although we have to go and provide, I think it was 40 spaces for that, is probably not going to be used at breakfast 7 days a week. And it's certainly not going to be used, on a Tuesday afternoon and be full. So those spaces, while they're reserved and they're added on, are not all going to be used. The bars that are in the food hall have got a specific number of parking spaces that needed to be used. But there are not going to be any bars that we're going to allow to open before, mid-afternoon. So all day long up until they open, there's not going to be any use for those parking spots. What kind of surprised me was the requirement for a hotel was only half a parking spot per room. So we have 62 rooms, we only required to have 31 parking spots, because I'm not sure why. It's not even based on the occupancy, which is, we're told we're going to have 78% occupancy out of the gate, but they're assuming we're going to have 50% occupancy. So when I went through it all, I just tried to look at it, and then we built all of our economics off of the traffic studies done by DeShazo, because if you can't move the cars in and out, you don't have any business. So we sat down with them, and and they did actually a very good job of telling us exactly how many vehicles were going to be moving in and out based on the traffic on 334 and new traffic that we could expect for what we built. So when we looked at it, something quite interesting happened. We laid it out by hour, and it's in the report, in the traffic study report, if you want to look, if you'd like to look at it. But at no time did we exceed or actually even reach 283 parking spots allowed or needed per hour. And that's because when you take the number of people coming in and out and you multiply them by more than like one person a car, and the state tells you it's going to be 2.5 people per car per trip, and then you figure out what's open and what's closed, the most we came up to of the 283 that were needed or required, we only had 191 parking spaces that we believe would be full at any one time. And that's also designed and how long they're going to be there for. We have 241 parking spaces, and we don't think we're going to hit that until year 3 or 4. It's hard to do it. We have so many trips done that. So an example is that there are 3,920 trips in a 5-day week, which is what was identified by DeShazo, which is approximately 784 trips per day, per weekday. So that turns out to be 2008, I'm sorry, the total number of trips per weekend is 2008, so which is 1,000 trips per weekend date and 784 trips per weekday day. So you take that 1,000 or you take the 700 and divide it over the 15 or 16-hour day we have, and we don't get close to the number of parking spots that we need out of the per the requirements of the city for the parking ordinances, mostly because we have such a huge mix of things that are going on there that they're not all going to be used at the same time. So economically, the example is we are going to have 5,928 trips generated per a full 7-day week, with 2.5 people on average in a vehicle, and all spending the state average of $15.20 per visit on food and or $210 per hotel room. It generates $11.7 million of gross taxable revenue a year. And so that's for the food court. And the Hilton, the hotel stays at that 190 is an additional $3.87 million of revenue. So $15.51 million a year based on 241 parking spots is actually higher than the budget that we put together, that we submitted to Hilton for approval to get the hotel and to build the food court with the financiers. So the parking, I don't see as a huge problem, and I also know that once we get the Jones property, we have quite a lot of expansion space there. We went through the trees, which is, we're happy to mitigate it any way we need to. We're happy to put trees in. We've put as many as we can. We've eliminated as few as we possibly could. So I'm not sure there's much to say there. The roof pitch was just designed, one, to lower the profile of the building. It still fits within many, different zoning requirements of other cities and states. It's not a flat roof. It is pitched and it is guttered, and it actually makes the project quite pretty. And the last piece are the setbacks. And the setbacks, which is how this all got started. Gun Barrel City is very unique. As a commercial property owner, and I might even be a residential property owner, you actually own to the center of the street. So your property line is not where your easement is, where the road ends. It's actually the middle of the road. Although the city is gracious and they pay to maintain the roads, that land does not actually belong to the city. It actually belongs to the homeowner. So when you do the setbacks, it was confusing as to where we started and where we had to stop. And so what we did was, except for where the point of the food hall touches Big Chief Drive, which is directly across the street from Crossroads liquor store, all the other buildings are significantly off the setbacks that are required. We put all the parking first. So we get the road Half of the road is to our property, then our property is trees, and then our property is parking, and then there's a building. So we pushed as far as we possibly could away. So while we do require a setback, it's not because there's a building hanging 5 feet off of the end of the median of the center of like Jeffrey Circle. It is significantly off that. And if it wasn't for that confusion, we would have built the hotel using the existing zoning that we have, which is commercial. Everything would be, fit just fine. But those setbacks, it became quite interesting because I guess we had a difficult time deciding which was the front and which was the back. Was the front according, where 334 was the front Big Chief, was the front Jeffrey Circle, and depending what you called the front, you could turn the building any way you wanted to. We just decided it would be easier, and I think we're at the end of the day, it is going to be easier to do a planned development instead of just going and doing it as a commercial development. That's all I've got, unless you all have questions for me.
Thank you so much. I'll now open it for commissioners. Please feel free to ask questions. And we have Brooke and Stephen and also Joe here to answer your questions. So start asking. No one has any questions?
I'm working on it. So the 5 feet that we're talking about, would that be on Gale Drive, Jeffrey Circle? It's 15 now, we're requesting to go to 5.
No.
We're trying to make sure the right person answers.
Right.
Give us a minute while we check over here.
The location that has a 5-foot setback is 5 feet off of the edge of the right-of-way of your main entrance exit off of State Highway 334.
Big Chief Drive.
So it's that portion of Big Chief Drive, because you have a lot of Big Chief Drive.
But the food hall is going to get really close to current Big Chief Drive.
One corner, the buildings are a very unique shape, driven by very unique space. And it does turn out that there is one corner. And it's actually not the building per se, to be honest. I think there it's the structures that shield the screen, I should say, the refuse bins. It's not actually the food hall structure itself.
What's going to happen to Big Chief Drive?
The order, in fact, it's in your plan development zone write-up. It's the very last item called the development schedule. And the first step, from a street viewpoint, the first step is to construct the new State Highway intersection with Chief Drive. So we have a new name, Chief Drive. Once that intersection is complete and accepted by TxDOT, because it'll be their yes, no, it'll be their jurisdiction, then the requirement is that the existing intersection has to be closed. That's a requirement from TxDOT. They're not going to have two intersections 400 feet apart. Frankly, in their position on the existing intersection, because it's so close to the end of the bridge.
And the bridge curves.
Yes, they're very happy. I sat in those meetings with the city manager at the time, and they were very pleased with the idea of moving the intersection back. And that's even compounded if, that's the eastbound lanes of the bridge are the old bridge. And they're at a lower elevation, and I think it was the area engineer for TxDOT noted that someday that side of the bridge will get replaced. Obviously, they're not committing to any schedule, but someday. And when it does, then the existing intersection location is just all the more problematic. So they were happy with the whole idea, but that's the order. One has to get built, put into operation simultaneously, then the other closes.
Okay. That makes sense. Mr. Haynes, what about the service entrance? Does that have to be on Jeffrey Circle?
If you leave that picture up, if you don't mind, or any of those, Brooke. That's okay. So the service entrance is all inside, behind the screen and the trees. It's all inside. The only time that anybody would leave from the hotel out onto Jeffrey Circle would be a fire truck after it responded to a fire. There's a knockbox and there's a gate there that is closed and it is screened. And no one would be using Jeffrey Circle for any purpose except a fire truck.
Okay. I'm asking that from Mr. Bieghauser. He's very concerned about that. We're just thinking
No,
trucks
that
in
was
and
the whole
out,
purpose of
trash
having
trucks
the
and whatnot.
new road, and it hits the circle and it goes down, and it's all, there's trees on both sides and it's screened. The arrows, you got it right there, Brooke, that's right.
Can I ask a quick question? Is that gate screened? Is it a solid gate or is it a wrought iron gate?
The fence is wrought iron, the gate is got a filament to it. I'm not exactly sure what the design is, but it's screened.
Still going to be able to let light through, right?
It's only 6 feet tall, so I don't know that it would need, I mean, it's the same height as
I'm
the,
talking about headlights, like when the service trucks are coming out, the garbage trucks, the employees. I think that's probably, I'm just guessing, that's probably employee parking over there, over on the side.
yeah, we could make the screen to where it's totally opaque.
Okay.
Doesn't have to let light in. Doesn't make any difference to us.
Okay, well,
Customers won't see it.
The other question I had about the landscaping, I've seen 4 or 5 designs in here. I don't know really which one we're going
The
with.
last one is what you're going with.
Okay. Well, if you can, this one doesn't show it, if somebody can pull it up. My concern is where the trees are, the big trees. It's very hard to tell in this picture, but I went and looked at the full blown out one. There's gaps under all those big trees. So if anybody's parking where those trees are, that headlights are going to be shining directly into my house.
I'm just
Actually-
showing Jay what you're talking about on a close-up version,
I'm not sure that's the case. I believe that is Jay's house there.
wherever, but
Right.
right there is the concern, is the
Well,
gap.
but we'll just fill it in.
Okay, well, I just wanted to know because that was the deal that we had discussed.
You know, I just trusted that the architect did the measurement.
The other thing is I've looked at the topography map. You said there's going to be berms and stuff there. It's not showing it on the map or the topography that I've seen
Well,
submitted.
you don't have you have a grading or a drainage map.
Oh, that's not the final grade,
Not-
okay.
It was only for water retention, because we had to put in an easement and some ponds and some swales. But what we do along Jeffrey Circle was not required to be on those plans.
Okay, and there's not going to be any landscaping on the outside like we had discussed it at earlier time.
Outside of,
Well, I'm just saying instead, if you wanted to keep the trees the way they are and don't have it all the way up to the bottom of the trees, I mean, and that will be filled in. I mean, it's not going to be filled in the day it's done. If they're 4 foot tall and you have them spaced, there's going to be gaps right out of the hat, which, I mean, you just have to live with that. But we always wanted a solid fence so there would never be an issue.
Jay, is it in the plan, did it say 4 foot or
It says 6 foot.
6 foot? Okay, so, I mean, they are supposed to be touching each other, was what I told the architect from minute one, that it had to be a solid filled plant wall.
Well, if you look at it in later, I'm not saying, if you look at it in detail, does have gaps in
Okay.
between the big trees.
Well, we will fill in the gaps there.
Thank you.
And Jay, I'm not sure how to plant around the roots of those trees. I'm not a landscape guy. So if you can help us understand what we have to do to be able to get enough dirt there so they can live and not kill the trees, we're happy to do it. If not, we have to take down some more trees, and we're happy to do that as well.
Well, all the trees are down except one in the mitigation. Every tree on the whole street comes down except one. So there's not going to be, those old oaks, there won't be any left except the one right there on the corner where you turn on Jeffrey Circle. Every other tree on the whole place is off.
That was that line, moving everything onto the project in order to get that line and get your coverage, unfortunately, had to come down.
Comes down, and then, so it's also going to keep a lot of the noise. It's just what I'm saying, those are old oaks that have been there for many, many years, and I hate seeing it done. And I know if we're going to do mitigation and we're losing all these trees, I know there's places in the parks that we need seeds, and I know that it's been addressed that we don't have water, but there's a lot of very native trees here that live without water. Other than the native rainfall, we might have to be a little more selective, but the 800 inches, or I think it's at 800 or 400, 800 inches that we're down, that we're losing, I personally think they ought to be addressed and putting them over by the convention center or the new civic center over in the parks where we don't have any shade. That's just my feelings.
It's my understanding that the city will be picking the locations for those trees, the mitigating trees, and yes, they are preliminarily discussing putting them near the new community center. I believe Angie Smith wants to address this as well.
As I mentioned to several of you, if the P&Z and the city council decides that they want to hold Pier 334 to the required mitigation, that is a decision that you get to make, and it can be a part of the motion. The city will work very closely with Stephen. We do have a new community center to make sure we're planting the right trees in the right place. And we can do that over a period of time. So part of our agreement can be, you know, we got to plant this many inches over the next 3 years. We don't want to go in immediately and plant 877 caliper inches of trees and not put them in the right place. But we do have a new community center coming in, and if that is the wish of the commission and the council, we can work with Pier 334 to make that happen. A portion of that, all of that, whatever that looks like for you guys, so.
Can somebody tell me what 844 caliper inches is in number of trees?
Jay? I was gonna say no, but Jay
4-inch
probably.
caliper tree,
Yeah.
that would be 200 of them, that big.
Yeah.
108-inch trees.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I just had no
And there's kind of a
conception
limit. You don't want to
that.
plant trees over a certain caliper inch, because when you start moving them, I mean, you can see Jay nodding his head, when you start moving them over, what, Jay, 15 inches? You start
Yeah,
having,
you're not gonna find a tree over 4
yeah,
inches.
so that's going to be the problem, is getting them replaced. So it is a lot of trees, and we would want to make sure that we were strategic in where we put them, and that we had the means to take care of them when we put them in, so.
I also think there's, when we talk about lighting and parking and lights into houses, we're kind of missing a piece here. We have, and we won't see it because the elevations are part of the construction design, and it may turn out, in fact, that the parking area is significantly lower than the level of Jeffrey Circle, and that will help mitigate lights shining into properties. That's just a piece we don't have yet, and it may turn out, although I believe the concerns are real, they may be mitigated somewhat by the eventual elevations of the property. If you've looked at the property, you know that it slopes from 334 up to Jeffrey Circle, and you can tell from the drawings provided that some of the hotel is on columns. They're not going to level the property and make it, you know, you couldn't put enough dirt in there to make it level with Jeffrey Circle. You couldn't do it, nor, I think, could you lop off the slope and without putting some concrete barrier to make it level with 334. I'm not a construction person, but just from going and looking at the site with the exhibits, that's my thinking. Any other questions?
Back to the screening along Jeffrey Circle, we're talking about just greenery, shrubs and whatnot, and trees, and no fence or a wall or anything like that?
There is a wrought iron fence that's 6 feet tall, and the shrubs are into it.
Wrought iron?
Again, and they're sitting on top of a berm. So, the goal would be to get the berm high enough so that the traffic lights can't go through dirt, and the rest is just, cosmetic.
And shoot, as a businessman, you want to keep your costs down where you can. Is like a solid wooden fence, would that not be maybe a little bit less expensive than wrought iron?
But
That would take care of the light. Just asking.
Would the fire department allow us to put up a wooden fence along there?
Please repeat that.
Oh, would the fire department let us?
Have to ask.
Yes, the fire department should have no issue with a wooden fence.
however, what about the maintenance of a wooden fence? Wouldn't wrought iron last a lot from a strictly maintenance point of view?
From the owner's viewpoint, wrought iron is initially more expensive, less regular maintenance, and wood is the opposite, less expensive initially, and requires more maintenance.
Or what about a masonry wall?
Masonry goes back to the Romans, so that answers that question.
One of the concerns that was brought in the opposition letters was watershed issues. Looking at what we've been presented here, I see no watershed issues. They've been addressed. Is that true?
Yes.
I'm asking you, yes.
Yes.
Please go to the mic.
Sorry, apologize. Right. This project, the entire water drainage requirements of the design standards of your ordinance, your city ordinance, have all been met. There's 3 locations in the development where there will be detention. The detention is for the purpose of slowing down the velocity of the water discharging into the lake, so to preclude erosion. That's the issue here, is erosion in the discharge. There's 3 locations, and all of the requirements are met. And it's a fairly good watershed. It's more than just the development site. So it's all in compliance.
Just to be clear then, the watershed issues are not being addressed by the planned development. That's in place. That's not going to be changed by going to a planned development. Is that true?
That is correct. The watershed issues are in compliance with your existing ordinance. There was no need for any exceptions to be requested,
There are,
and they would not have been recommended by us, although that would be your decision.
there are only 4 exceptions, correct?
4
Led
categories.
you to requesting the plan development,
That's correct.
correct? The trees, the setbacks, the parking, and the roof pitch. Thank you.
Right,
The roof
right.
pitch.
And-
Other than that, it meets B2.
Yes. Now, just for your complete picture, you all, plan development also helped to address the issue of the right-of-way, the existing right-of-way versus where the existing roadways were, which led to the setback issues. But the first problem was the street's not where the right-of-way would be, and the majority of the right-of-way isn't really dedicated, but the streets are there by, I believe it's called prescriptive right or so. So in the plan development, in sort of one action by planning and zoning and then by city council, you're able to establish the correct locations for the right-of-way, dedicate those, create a new right-of-way for the new intersection, and then approve the resultant modified setbacks because when we established the new right-of-way, that land came out of the existing lots owned by the developer. So their space reduced, and in order to get a proper facility in that space, that generated the need for the adjustment to these setbacks. So that's kind of the chronology of how it was decided by the city that the best path forward was through planned development.
Thank you. Do we have further questions?
One more question. On the 15-foot side street setback, would that be on Jeffrey Circle and Gill Drive? Because you're asking for 5 for the entertainment pavilion, right?
Let me-
Food court.
I just have to get the right drawing, I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Right. The 15-foot setback is all along Jeffrey Circle? Yes.
Okay,
And that's the one that we call front.
okay.
Again, there's a lot of fronts.
Like Mr. Haynes said, which part is front?
Right. Now, in fairness, that setback line goes to about the 2/3 point in the parking stall. So that goes from the street to sort of like the back door of the car. Then there's the parking lane, and then another set of parking stalls, and then some landscaping before you get to the actual building. So it's not as if the building itself is 15 foot off the street. The building itself is 60 feet off the street. So, you know,
And I'm just asking for myself and my neighbors, because right now it's about 15 feet to the rope that the old Big Chief that Dan Leonard had there. You know, it affords us a little bit of parking across street from our house.
yes. Well, when we set the right-of-way, we set 40 feet right-of-way. We went to the property lines on the other side of the street, so to speak. And the direction was, you know, you're not going to disturb any existing property aside from this proposed development. You're going to leave the street where it is. And so then we went 40 feet, and that goes into the development site everywhere. And that took away from the site, and that therefore required reduced setbacks.
Okay. The red line is where we're asking for the setback to be, correct?
The blue dashed line is the setback line. The red line is the right-of-way line.
Okay. But that's not the actual street.
No, the street is
Okay.
kind of toward the bottom of the sheet from that.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
We as commissioners were provided with 2 letters in opposition today that I do have another question on. One of them specifically says, or 2 letters say specifically, I'm in opposition to the plan as drawn and to the rezoning that would give virtual carte blanche approval to the developer to move forward in any way he sees fit without regard to the impact of residential neighbors who have lived there for years. Now, am I misunderstanding? But when we have a land development, that sets the parameters within which this development has to live. Is that true?
It's hard to, I mean, the approval of this project, of this planned development zone, the description of the zone, the requirements of the zone, the requirements on the developer from the zone are exactly the same as your current B2 business zone, except for those 4 exceptions. So whatever control a person had living across the street or down the street or around the bend, whatever control they had to the current zoning relative to the building, the function of the building or whatever control they had, they still have. Now, to be fair, if you read the zoning, that zoning doesn't give anybody control other than what's written in the zoning. If it's a commercial development, it's in a business, the approved uses are in your B2, and the defined uses proposed here are listed in the PD, right in the front piece of the PD write-up, which are all currently approved in B2. There's no new uses in the plan development that are not already there in B2.
But you understand, I'm going to be required to vote on this, and words like carte blanche to make changes without regard to what impact is going to be, that's bothersome to me.
Well, understood, but I mean, and I answered it the way I did because any citizen has the same ability, rights with this PD zone, except for those 4 topics discussed, the same as they had with B2. So if you were to go in and if I bought that lot today, either one of those lots, and I were to put a square building 20 by 20 or whatever, and it was going to meet with a use that met the current B2 zone, I could do that and nobody would have any, I guess I would have carte blanche within whatever's written in B2. You know, using that term, carte blanche, that's correct, I'd have it, because the zone gives me that right. It gives anybody the right that owns that land, or any land within B2.
So just to assuage my fears, there is no such thing as he can go in and do whatever he wants to do. He can only do what's within the limits of the plan development or the B2 zone.
Exactly.
I want to make sure that I understand that right. I want to make sure that everybody on this board understands
Right.
that correctly.
If you were to I could refer you to 2 specific sheets that'll help, I would think. It would be exhibits 2H1 and 2H2. H1 is the hotel and H2 is the food court. And in the upper left-hand corners, and I print them out as big as I can so that I can read them. There's a table that sort of summarizes with respect to the B2 zoning requirements, shows on the left, minimum lot area, front yard setback, et cetera. It shows what's required, and then it shows what this project is proposing. And you can readily see that it's just the setbacks, the first, second, on the hotel, first, second, and fourth entries are the only things that are less than, and that's part of the 4 exceptions. And then when you go down the bigger table, that essentially is a summary of the B2 zone with respect to fire-resistant exteriors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The only thing being asking for an exception is on that roof pitch. Everything else is in compliance with B2, current zoning. Then the exact same table for the food hall, same format, and the same. There's only one setback, that's just that 5-foot corner on the food hall. That's the only setback exception, but everything else is the same. Everything's in conformance except for the roof pitch. And essentially this wording is a summary of the B2 requirements that any builder, I should say property owner, and his builder have to comply with. And that'll get checked before there's any building permit. The plans come to the city, the complete building plans. These are just application plans, but the complete building plans come to the city for building permit. And the permitting people, they'll look at, essentially, this is the site plan approval. They'll look at the site plan approval. This will be their guide as to what's been agreed to. Whatever you agree to, whatever the city council agrees with, that's the guide that the building permit folks use, plus the building codes. So they'll look at this for the overall, where is it, how high, how low, how far back, et cetera. Streets as well, parking lots, materials, that's all in here. But it's in here in a general way, and then those folks will look at it specifically before they issue the building permit.
Thank you, Mr. Mundo, for clearing that up. That helps a lot. Thank you.
At this point, 3.5 years into this project, with Hilton approval and all the work we've done with the engineers, it would be silly for me to try to build anything else than exactly what this is. The money's been raised for this project. Hilton has approved this project. So it would wouldn't make much sense for me to go and try to build an amusement park there after getting approval to build a hotel and a food court.
Well, in fact, you couldn't.
I couldn't. Well,
Okay. Well, that's the question I have. This statement that I read to you from this letter has no merit, correct?
Excuse me. It's not on the site plan now, so he can't. Unless
Once
it got
again,
added.
what I read to you from this letter in opposition is meritless. Is that true?
Well, I personally haven't read the letter, but there's no carte blanche in any activity that you all hear. That word really doesn't apply, that term. That just doesn't exist.
Thank you for clearing that up for us.
And is it not also true that on completion of the construction of this project, when the developer applies for the approval of the certificate of occupancy and the final plat, if there are deviations from what is presented, those have to be cured or fixed before either the certificate of occupancy or the final plat is approved. So there is no carte blanche, if you will, for Mr. Haynes to change any of this. It would be illogical for him to do so, because at the end of the day, he wouldn't have a certificate of occupancy, couldn't open.
That's absolutely correct.
Thank you. Thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you very much. You've cleared it
one
up.
question, one comment.
Sure.
Jay, on the fence, we agreed on a 6-foot fence that it was a good screen. I would need to go back to Hilton, but if you would prefer to have a wood fence there, which would not be nearly as attractive as what we proposed, I don't have a problem pitching that to them and seeing if they would go for it.
I understand. I understand. That wasn't something I brought up, but I understand. I appreciate it.
We're just concerned about all the lights on our houses, and so is our neighbor, Mr. Beephauser.
Mr. Haynes, a wood fence or a wrought iron fence makes no difference as to what we're looking at. That has no difference, makes no bearing on what we're looking at right now, whether to make this a planned development
Correct.
or whether to make it a business, a B2.
It's just, we agreed that I would put up a screen so that the light would not shine through. We chose one method. If an alternative method to that fence is, more acceptable, we would consider it.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Dye, you've been quiet. Mr. McCullough, you've been quiet? No,
Absorbing a lot of it, so.
no, I understand. There's quite a bit to think about and to absorb. Are we to the point that we're ready for motions?
Believe so.
We agree we're ready for motions. All right then. Is there a motion for item 1C, which recommends the rezoning of the property from general business B2 to planned development district?
I move that we approve item 1C as written and make said recommendation to the city council.
I have a motion from Mr. Key. Do I have a second? I will second the motion. We will now take a vote. From my left, please.
Burson, no.
McCullough, no.
Die, no.
Weller, yes?
Key, yes.
Wilmoth, no.
Motion fails. Is there a motion for item 1D, which recommends amending the comprehensive plan use plan and map if council approves rezoning the property to plan development at its meeting from general business district B2 to plan development?
I move that we adopt item 1D as is written and accept it and pass it on.
I have a motion from Mr. Key. Do I have a second? I will second the motion. Vote from my left, please.
Burson, no.
McCullough, no.
Die, no.
Weller, yes?
Key, yes.
Wilmoth, no.
1 second, I'm making notes. Bear with me, please. Is there a motion for item 1E, which recommends approval of the preliminary plat of the subject property?
I move that we approve the preliminary plat of the subject property as is written and presented in item 1E in today's planning and zoning agenda.
Mr. Key makes the motion to approve. Do I have a second?
McCullough, second.
I have a motion and a second. Voting from my left, please.
Burson, no.
McCullough, no.
Die, no.
Weller, yes?
Key, yes.
Wilmoth, no.
Motion fails. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Do I have any objections to adjournment? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Let the record show it is 7:32.